Welcome to the Diversity Connector podcast, where we explore the rich tapestry of human experiences. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging, and together as we dive into conversations that bridge cultures, challenge stereotypes, and celebrate the unique perspectives each of us brings to the table. Each episode is a journey through stories and insights from a kaleidoscope of voices, each sharing their colorful narrative. Whether you're at home, on the go, or just anywhere in between, you're now part of a community that values understanding, inclusivity, and the beauty of diversity. So plug in your headphones, get comfortable, and let's connect through the power of our shared stories. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Diversity Connector podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, my name is Vicki Saunders. I am based on Turtle Island, also known as Canada, and in Toronto on Treaty 13. And I'm very happy to be with you today. This incredible community that you've launched and grown and is co-creating. So I started the venture Corliss, which was formerly called SheEO, when I was 50. I'd been an entrepreneur my whole lifetime, essentially. I'd never really worked for anyone except my parents on the family farm when I was growing up. And I don't know that I ever really thought I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I could tell that there was nothing out there that really fit me. I couldn't see any jobs that excited me or interested me. I was just in my essence, I was meant to be an entrepreneur, but when I was growing up, it wasn't cool to be an entrepreneur. That's like people that couldn't figure out what to do became entrepreneurs. So I happened to have a really incredible experience. I was in Prague in the Czech Republic during the time that the Berlin Wall fell. And it really transformed my life. I was surrounded by folks that were now dreaming about what they were going to do now that they were free. One day there's a tank in your country. The next day it drives away, and everybody kind of flips a switch in their mind and in their story and their narrative. And all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, now that I'm free, what am I going to do? Who am I going to be? And it all worked on me too. After a couple of weeks of hearing this dialogue, I thought, oh my God, I'm free too. What am I going to do? And so, excuse me, I started to become like a catalyst for entrepreneurship. Essentially, I started a business, and then I started another business, and then I got all my friends locally there to start businesses. And then one day someone said to me, why are you doing all of this here instead of in your own country, Canada, where you're from? And it just struck me and stopped me in my path. And I thought, how do you create the conditions for people to believe that they're free in a place where you're already supposed to be free, but there's like all these layers of expectations on you, all these stories that you've picked up of what is success, of what that means for you, the jobs that are success for Vicki Saunders, the salary I should be getting, the people I should be hanging out with. And in sort of an instant in Prague, I was able to kind of wash all that off and like start again. Who do I want to be? And so I've basically become like pretty obsessed with this idea of like liberating ourselves through business. And I think that business and entrepreneurship is this incredibly beautiful structure. You take your gifts, whatever they are, through your business, you get them out there into the world. And then every single day there's like stuff coming at you that helps you to transform yourself into who you're meant to be. And so for me, business is like really exciting to do that. And so I looked at the state of the world I started a bunch of businesses. I took a company public. And I just kept thinking, like, business should be so different than it is. This, like, maximizing profit, not caring about people, not really caring about planet, just extracting, really bothered me for 30 plus years. It drove me crazy. And so I thought, what if we started to move capital and resources to those who have a different worldview, who want to create a different kind of world? And so I launched this thing called Coreless with 500 women in Canada. It was a giant experiment where we each contributed $1,100 into this pool of money. And then we invited entrepreneurs who had new models and new ideas about how to create the world anew in a business framework. Present your ideas, 10 questions, super simple questionnaire. And then we all voted. So everybody who contributed money went online and voted, and then we voted for where the money should go. And so we picked our first 5 ventures, and then we had a pool of $500,000, and then we brought them all together, and they divided up the money for the maximum social impact. And it's a 0% interest loan. So they pay that back over 5 years, and then it goes to the next group. So we started this in Canada. Fast forward 9 years later, we have about $20 million circulating that was raised $1,000 at a time. We've replicated the model in 5 countries, including Australia. And we are about to find another path forward as well. We're going to transform our model a little bit to sort of evolve with the market conditions and the state of the world the way it is. We've learned a lot over this time. We've funded 176 different ventures so far, and all kinds of amazing things, from people doing the first home compostable courier packaging, first of its kind in the world. Lots of interesting inventions. Someone reinvented the walker and the wheelchair called the Alinker. Others are transforming rural health with whole new models for home health care. Others are redoing community media landscape, because media companies are just being decimated. Community newspapers almost wiped off the planet. And so this is a new model and a platform to revive that, to bring back local democracy and local connections. Full range of things that we funded. It's been incredibly exciting. The vibe of our whole community is called radical generosity. So whatever you have in abundance, we encourage you to give that freely and to get woven into each other's stories and to witness what we can all do together collectively. And so, for me, one of the things that I have in abundance are connections. I'm super curious about people and ideas. And so I'm always kind of reaching out to interesting folks, connecting with them, seeing how I can help. And I often connect them with others that help them on their journey. So I'm contributing connections. Other people have money in excess and they're contributing that. Others are super genius business strategists and they're helping with that. Others are just phenomenal emotional support. And then we're using our buying power and our expertise to support one another in this whole community to lift all of us up. And so it's this stunning community of radically generous women and non-binary folk who are using our influence and our creativity and our energy to support those who have better business models, better ideas of how we can transform pretty much every sector out there. We call it the world's to-do list. We're all working on the world's to-do list because we know that a better world is possible. And it's only going to happen if we change our stories, change our narratives, and get in there practicing a different way of being together. So that's me, Vicki Saunders from Coreless, and I'm really happy to be here.
Wow. Vicki, when I first learned about you, I was on my path to looking for investors for my business. I literally cyber stalked you, listened to podcasts you'd been interviewed on. It's such an inspiration to see the possibility of women banding together, working together, and lifting each other up. You've really created a blueprint that a lot of us can actually follow to try and, do things to make a difference in the world and have social impact, especially around women and children, which is really my passion. So, how has your ability to integrate diverse concepts play a role in your success as an entrepreneur and in creating impactful businesses?
Well, I think we're at this moment where we're always at a moment, aren't we? But anyway, we're in a moment right now where more than I can remember in my lifetime, we are sort of stuck with this singular narrative of how to do things. Like, and you can go to sort of any incubator, accelerator, or biz school out there, and they'll tell you, this is how you build a business. I'm like, okay, that's one way, but there's like a ton of other ways. And if we keep building businesses the same way, raise a bunch of money, go as fast as you can, don't work, like go fast and break things, and go faster than people can actually handle, and just extract without caring for the next generation, we're just going to get more of the same. And so, I feel like I really think the world can be different. And from a young age, I was thinking, why isn't business do good and make money at the same time? Like, why isn't that all woven together? Why is it separate? Like philanthropy over here, give away your money and then like do your harm and then try and fix it by giving away your money. I'm like, that makes no sense to me. And so I'm like, how do you do these things? And in the early days of my life, people would say, don't be ridiculous, Vicki. You make your money and then you give it away. That's the model. And I'm like, but what if it wasn't? And so it's the desire that I had inside of me that it could be fundamentally different required, then I had to, okay, well, show us how you can do that, Saunders. And so I have experimented creating all kinds of initiatives. Whenever someone said, we don't know how to do this and we don't think it can be done, I'd be like, sign me up. And so I have really been experimenting for 35, almost 40 years, basically, with doing things a little bit differently and showing people it's possible, hoping that would lead to change when they could see something done differently. And so that's been a little bit of my approach.
I love it. So you mentioned using and receiving almost every kind of financing. What challenges have you faced in securing diverse forms of financing, and how have you overcome them?
I would say I'm a master at this point of dipping into existing pools of capital that have specific rules attached to them, saying, yeah, I can do that, but then going over here and using it in like fundamentally different ways. Still, I'm going to reach your outcomes, but really like using it as fuel and nourishment to show other ways of doing things. And so super creatively, basically, because, I think it was in my very early 30s, I was at some meeting and people were saying whatever they were saying. And I came out and I said something that was apparently like a little provocative, shocking. And the man came up to me after he was running the meeting and he said, if you were me, what would you hire you to do? Which I thought was like a delicious question, which I have used many other times with folks. When I see someone who's got something special, I'm like, and turning it over to the quote unquote talent, to ask them how you'd use it is a thing that someone gifted that to me. And so I then took that as a bit of a bar. And because, if you're walking in with your idea of like, I've got some capital or I've got some money, here's how I think something's going to work. But like, only from your own imagination can that explode. Like, it's so much more interesting to see what other kinds of ideas come your way. So that's been a thing that's really worked hard. I find it incredibly difficult, the rules attached to money in the world, because they're at this point in time only about getting more money.
It sounds to me like you were born and wired to be a rule breaker.
Yes.
You're definitely somebody who doesn't live within the box. You're always on the outside of the box, creating innovative ways. So what innovative forms of financing do you believe are most effective in supporting businesses aimed at creating a better world?
Well, right now, not a lot. Because we need really blended forms of finance. If you're trying to do, significant social impact, it usually is involved with disentangling ourselves from existing systems and structures, which can be really very complicated. And it's hard to actually understand how the systems work sometimes. So it takes years to actually get in there and understand where the leverage points are. Right. And so I think like that's pretty problematic. So it's usually a blend of debt maybe some equity, but mostly debt and philanthropy that helps on the social impact side.
Yes.
We've seen just a lot of retrenchment in the markets these days, where people that say they're interested in social impact are using basically the same structures as complete for-profit models, right? So
Right.
they want their return and the social, but those are often trade-offs that need to happen in the middle. And so what always gets prioritized is the money, and then the
Yes.
impact is second. So in the recent few years, we've seen a very big focus on just remove the social impact if it's too hard, because we want to maximize our profits,
Yeah.
which is kind of the opposite of why I exist on this planet, and certainly our organization.
Wow. Now let's talk a little bit about program development for inclusivity. Can you discuss some of the programs that you've launched that are focused on youth, technology, social, and women's entrepreneurship?
Yeah, well, so what we're doing right now with Corliss is a focus on women and non-binary folk. Those are the folks that we fund, and we're very much interested in moving capital and resources to those who are most excluded from systems. And so, if you're a Black woman, there's less than 1% of capital going to you on the
I
planet.
know that.
You
I've
know
been
that. Yeah.
that.
If you're
Yeah.
Indigenous, it's not even a statistic. And so about 45% of our portfolio is Black, Indigenous, women of color. And we really focus on moving resources in that direction. And, people need to design their organizations to get different results. If you just keep funding the same people, it's because your structures and your systems are biased in that direction. So you have to rethink them. So in the early days of SheEO, we did a lot of like deep relationship building in Indigenous communities, really querying like what kind of economic models have existed in Indigenous cultures. How does the worldview create harmony and more synergy with nature? It completely it's all one system, and we're just part of it, as opposed to us on the top of some pyramid. And so we've explored a lot of those approaches, and then done lots of cohorts of Black women entrepreneurs, Indigenous women entrepreneurs, South Asian, like really trying to get a sense of what's going on. And then we've done lots of racial justice working groups, and getting rooted in our ancestral lineage, because like I really think that your being a good ancestor is a huge part of like our human journey. And so in order to understand that, you need to know, what is your ancestral lineage? Where do you come from? So these things are all tied up. It's not like business over here and all this personal development separate.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a student of creating high performance teams, what strategies do you employ to ensure culture and values drive excellence in businesses?
Yeah, it's the root of everything. And so, as they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So, in the early days, I played a lot of sports, so I understood what it's like to be on a high performance team versus not. And business is the same way, right? Like, how do you create a culture in your team where everyone is in the best position for them?
Yeah.
And a lot of our structural design for business is set up in roles. So you're the CMO and you're doing this role, but like you might be good at 30% of that stuff and not another 70. And so it leads to this like sub-optimized approach where managers are constantly saying, Vicki, you're good at these things, but like you're not good at these things. So could you spend more time getting better? I flip that in all of the organizations I've ever done. I'm like, hey, Gertrude, you're great at these 3 things, but you're not good at these. Please never touch those things again. Because someone else on the team is amazing at those things. And let's organize around gifts. And so all of the structures that I have set up has been like this experimentation of what is the unroll approach to organizing teams? How do we organize around gifts? Because people don't do good work unless they want to. I know this is a very simple statement. Like you can't carrot, and stick people to create greatness. You need to have people in places where they're literally using their gifts to create a great product. So I spend a lot of time like optimizing and making sure people are where they're really meant to thrive.
I love that because when you are working in your position of strength, it's not work anymore. It's play. You
Exactly.
come
It's so much fun.
playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. So, with your experience in mentoring over 1,000 businesses, what advice do you consistently find yourself giving to entrepreneurs?
Number one thing is nobody knows what they're doing. And so, because people always ask me, am I doing it right? And I'm like, I don't know. Are you doing it right? There is no right way to do anything. In fact, if you follow what has been the right way in the past, we're just going to get more of the same world. So
Yeah.
we really need you to sink into your intuition and feel for you. Does this feel right for you? Does it match your values? Are you in your integrity? And that can be a very freeing thing, but it can also
Yes.
be a very scary thing depending on your level of bravery and courage, because a lot of people are like, could you just give me the paint by numbers kit for my
Mhm.
life?
Yes.
And
Make it easy.
I'm literally like the last person you should talk to if you're looking for that, because I will never give you anything like that. I'll be like, how does it feel? Is it working for you? If you ask me a question, I'm going to ask you a question back.
I love it. So, how do you approach the process of synthesizing and innovation in business, especially in the context of diverse and inclusive environments?
So one of the things I've really built a muscle of synthesis, and so I am a collector. I mentioned earlier that I'm very curious, but I'm a collector of ideas and people. And
Right.
so, on any given week, like last week, I make my list at the end of the week. I had 20 one-on-one conversations,
Congratulations.
and
Wow.
I'm just on top of everything else I'm doing. I'm like, what are you noticing in the world? What's going on? What's working? What's not? Where are the blocks? What pathways are you seeing open? And I'm looking for trends. I'm looking for because right now there's so much uncertainty and so much change, and
Yes.
a lot of new receptivity, that things that weren't open before, people are more open to receiving now because we've pulled back the veil on everything.
Yeah.
And so it's a really exciting and interesting time. And also, like, who knows, try again today and see, ask the question yesterday, nobody listens. Ask the next day, everyone's like, oh, amazing.
Yes.
So I'm constantly like searching for
Okay.
what's open and what's not. And then I'm synthesizing that into, what direction might we go?
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's in conversation, I guess, that you get these answers. A lot of people block themselves off, aren't open to having random conversations with multiple people. So, what I'm really hearing back from you is it's in these conversations that you pick up the trends, correct?
It is. And it's, I'm not going in there with like, so and so, I need to get the answer from this person, right? I'm much more curious about like asking questions to surface, because I do these co-sensing calls now all the time with folks where we just get on a call once a month and it's like, what are you noticing?
Oh,
Very
wow.
open question. And it's
Right.
fascinating when you have a whole bunch of diverse thinkers from diverse
Yes.
backgrounds with all kinds of different things that we all notice different things because everything's kind of a projection. So
Yes.
it's fascinating because, like, most people are just trying to uphold their story.
Yeah.
Things aren't
Yeah.
fair. So all they see is everything that's not fair. Or
Wow.
or things, everyone's so creative and then they just see creativity everywhere. And so if you
Yes.
mix yourself and surround yourself with a whole bunch of different perspectives, it helps you to form a picture of the whole that you
Yeah.
can't get on your own.
No, no, definitely not. So you actually invest a lot of time to focus and get things from different perspectives. I love that. It's very, very interesting. So, given your extensive experience in diverse forms of financing and supporting businesses with a positive global impact, can you elaborate on your investment thesis? I think we've already touched on that a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
but how it guides your decisions in choosing ventures to invest in, especially those aligned with creating a more inclusive and sustainable world.
Well, let me just give you some wild thoughts here. So I don't have an investment thesis the way that people talk about it in the world. First of all, in our community, we make this decision collectively with the whole community. Again, we need the full brain, not just my biased view, but like it has a mix of everybody's intuition is involved in that. So it's very surprising the kinds of things that we select.
Yes.
But for me, um, I follow what I really care about and what
Mm.
lights me up. And I've been kind of joking about this for the past 8 years, but it feels very prescient these days, which is like anything that sounds incredibly rational. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's really rational. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Probably not going to work. The things, like the things that are working together, like super crazy things. You're like, what? They did what? In what way? Because I don't
Ah,
think the future doesn't look like the past.
no,
The
no.
bias that you put to, oh,
You.
that totally makes sense. And we're like trying to discover new models. You don't want things to
Yes.
be something that totally makes sense to you. So it's a little
No.
bit scary, a little bit out there, a little bit kind of wacky, but it's a tuning into the entrepreneur and their passion for what they're doing and what their story is.
Yes.
Those things kind of guide me. When I can almost feel truth when people are sharing something. They'll just be like, I had this issue. I can't stop thinking about it. Here's what I did. And I'm like, that is fascinating. And when you feel that passion, you think this person's going to figure it out.
Yes. Oh, I love that. So over the last 22 years, I set up women's cooperatives throughout the African continent, here in Southeast Asia and the Caribbean. And I've helped get women out of poverty with very small amounts of money. But it has been hard to raise the $1 million that I need to build the full app and scale and go globally. I'm asking for your advice,
Yeah.
asking for your insights and knowledge. What can you help me with right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so my whole thing, which is what you're doing right now too, is if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice,
Yes.
ask for money. This works really well. And so I think engaging people who are passionate about what you're up to is
Yeah.
critical. I'm all about these like community membership-y things these days because I think it's who's benefiting from you creating this in the world. And then is there a way to create a value proposition so they are involved as like the investors without thinking of it in like a traditional investor way?
Yes.
And so that's the question that sort of comes up for me, which is identifying that. Like, and the other thing that I notice happens all the time is when you have an idea for what you're trying to do, the first thing you're like, what do you want to do? Got it. Okay. What do you want? But then the first place people go is, what do I need? And they miss the what do I have question. The second question should always be what do I have? And so for me, it's like you've got the clarity around what you want. What do you already have access to in your community across all these things? There are resources and assets that are circling your world that maybe are invisible, or maybe you need to surface and like make a list of those and then go to what do you need after that. But I find that, like almost every time I'm talking to somebody, there are folks in their community they haven't reached out to who are already like helping them get those people involved to be supportive. So I'd start with the what do you already have and map that out a little bit to see if there's anything there that's surprising.
That's a good piece of advice. Yeah, I'm a very good networker. I have a huge database of people that I know. I think I need to go back to the drawing board and look at the resources that I have already.
Yeah, I bet you there's something in there that I'll be like, oh my God, I forget that all the time. Right? You go
Yes.
right away to what you need, thinking you don't have it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Thank you. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
very much.
You're welcome.
You are creating a legacy and you are literally a living legacy. When I listen to you speak in the very beginning, a lot of people make a lot of money that they bequeath when they're dead. How does it feel to see things in action while you're alive and vibrant? And what is that experience like? And how can you reframe other philanthropists in living the life the way you live yours
Yeah.
and seeing the results of your efforts right now?
Well, it's a beautiful question, and it's a really beautiful frame for your life. Like, there's this whole thing now in the world where people are having funerals before they die because you can now plan your exit in some countries, which my mom actually did, which was pretty fascinating. And I'm starting to see like, what if we did the opposite? So what if you lived, your life the way that you want to while you're here? Hello, instead of giving it all out after. I mean, I'm absolutely honored and excited by the work that I do every day, and to be woven into the stories of so many gorgeous people's dreams. There's nothing that makes me happier going to bed at night when I feel like I've been useful to people that are doing really hard things and sometimes not so hard things. And I was able to give a little nugget, and then I got something from them too. Like, it's very reciprocal, this conversation that we're having. So it feels really special. And again, like maybe a reminder to everybody, you can design your life. It took a lot of intention to create the conditions for me to be using all of my gifts the way I'd like to. And I've redefined success many, many times in my life. I don't have like a classic sort of success narrative, that go get rich, blah, blah, blah. That's not mine. I could not work for money without it being like deep work that I really care about. So again, I mean, everyone has the capacity, and if you kind of stop and like look at what you're doing, everyone's doing some good is what I believe. And maybe it's just orient yourself to doing more of that every day.
I love it. Beautiful way to end our interview, Vicki. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute honor listening to your insights, hearing about your work. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap, everybody, on today's episode of the Diversity Connector podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our vibrant and global conversation. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a tapestry of diverse perspectives. Remember, every story you've heard today is a thread in the larger fabric of our shared humanity. So, as you step back into your world, carry these stories with you and let them inspire you to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity around us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these inspiring stories with more listeners. Do follow us on social media by looking for the Diversity Connector podcast for more updates. Until then, keep connecting, keep listening, and keep celebrating the beauty of diversity. This is the Diversity Connector podcast signing off. Stay curious, stay open, and definitely stay connected.